Watching Al Jazeera live from London. We stay in Gaza with the situation there. These are live pictures of the Gaza skyline where it's just gone 10 p.m. Israeli airstrikes have destroyed another high-rise building and more Palestinian rockets are being fired into Israel. It's the worst outbreak of violence since the 2014 war with no resolution in sight. You can see there the 14-story Al-Shuruk Tower in Gaza City was partially bombed by Israeli jets as a warning to evacuate before it was flattened just half an hour later. It housed media offices as well as residential homes. At least 65 Palestinians have been killed in the Gaza Strip since Monday, including 15 children. More than 330 have been injured. Well, let's hear now from some residents inside Gaza City following Israeli airstrikes there this morning.
My daughter-in-law and my grandson died, and my granddaughter is missing without any trace. The Jews target women and children. My son's wife was 5 months pregnant. This is terrorism. They bombed them without any warning. They didn't warn them. Their house had nothing but the kids.
What should I say? This is a crime. They were civilians, a woman, her children, a barber and a shop owner. These are the people who were at the scene. They didn't hit a militant nor an official. We are civilians sleeping at our homes.
Well, the armed wing of the Palestinian group Hamas has launched another barrage of rockets at Israel from Gaza. It says it's in response to the killing of several senior Hamas commanders, including its military chief. Israeli paramedics say a 6-year-old is in a critical condition after a rocket strike on an apartment building in the city of Sderot. More than 1,000 Palestinian rockets have been fired into Israel from Gaza over the past day, and they've had a long range from Tel Aviv in the north down to Beersheba in the south. 6 Israelis have been killed in these rocket attacks, including a father and daughter in Lid who were Palestinian Israelis.
I would like to see an end that will leave some kind of positiveness to find a solution between us and the Palestinian.
Well, it was a really scary night. My friends who live in remote places were even more scared, but they're used to this reality of missiles being fired from the Gaza Strip. And all of Israel's under attack. It's a very scary situation to be in.
And tensions have also spilled onto the streets of Israel's mixed Palestinian-Israeli towns and neighborhoods. There have been riots in the city of Bat Yam near Tel Aviv. Shops owned by Palestinian Israelis have been targeted. It's some of the worst spasms of communal violence that Israel has seen in years. And the Israeli government has declared a state of emergency in Lid, where about 1/3 of the population are Palestinian Israelis. A Palestinian man was shot dead, and a synagogue and dozens of vehicles were set on fire. The mayor likened it to a civil war. So a very tense situation there. Well, Al Jazeera's Safwat Al-Khallout and Harry Fawcett are covering developments from Gaza and southern Israel. Let's start with Safwat Al-Khallout, who joins us now from Gaza. So first of all, tell us a little bit about what the situation is like there now.
Just a few minutes ago, the Israeli fighting jets fired at least 13 rockets at the main junction in Gaza City, which is a few meters far from our office. These explosions shaked every house almost in Gaza City and also cut off the electricity in many places in Gaza. As you can see the background, it's completely dark except from some houses who are using generators. Apart from that, there are more Israeli airstrikes targeting cars and homes in many other places all over the Gaza Strip. We have been receiving information about more casualties, but still they have not, the ambulances were not being able to reach these places. If you could now hear also in the background, the ambulances are rushing towards the explosions to help or to carry the casualties. The Minister of Health is still confirming that 65 Palestinians killed, including 16 children and 5 women, and more than 390 Palestinians injured in the last wave of escalation. Still, the Palestinian fighting groups, they are firing their rockets towards southern Israel, and at 9 o'clock p.m. local, Islamic Jihad fired the second biggest barrage of rockets towards Ashkelon and Ashdod. They said that this is a promise that they did in retaliation of the assassination of Hamas military commander and Islamic Jihad commander that they were assassinated yesterday. Hamas has released a statement in the name of its leader Ismail Haniyeh, saying that the confrontation is open, that they will not surrender, and they are ready to continue defending their people. This is an indication that there is no mediation yet, that Egypt and others have failed to mediate, to calm down the situation, or to reach at least a temporary ceasefire. On the horizon, we can't see any calmness. The Israelis are moving from a level to a higher level of escalation by targeting fighters, by targeting armed group commanders, by hitting people, residential buildings, and asking people to leave their homes. Now tens of people are found in the street looking for alternative to their destroyed places. So far 16 ordinary buildings have been forced to evacuate after they received phone calls from the Israelis to leave their buildings. Then the Israelis destroyed them. According to Al Mizan, local human rights center, the last statistics until yesterday, 16 buildings had been evacuated and destroyed by the Israelis, in addition to the two biggest residential towers, Hanadi, and the one behind us called Al Jawhara, which is full of international media, international and local media offices. Today there were 5 also buildings that have been evacuated and destroyed by the Israelis. We are expecting another wave of escalation from both sides, since there is no any indication of calmness, any indication of intervention from any regional, Arab or international part to calm the situation.
Safwat Al-Khalut with the latest there from Gaza. Safwat, thank you for bringing us up to date. Let's go to Harry Fawcett now, who's in southern Israel, near Gaza. So we were hearing what the Israelis have been doing to Gaza, but of course we've seen around 1,000 rockets also leave the strip for various locations in Israel. Tell us more about that.
Yes, that's right. And the Palestinian Islamic Jihad rockets that Safwat was just referring to, we saw those at very close hand just about an hour or so ago. A very large volley coming out of the Gaza Strip, coming over very close to us, and several of them being intercepted by the Iron Dome overhead. But a lot of them did get through once more, and there was a direct hit on an apartment building in the town of Sderot, close to the Gaza Strip. A 6-year-old boy is said to have been hit or at least injured in that attack and is in a critical condition. As well as that, earlier in the day, there was an anti-tank missile fired at an Israeli military jeep. 1 soldier was killed, 2 others injured, one of them critically. And Israel itself has been talking about the kinds of attacks it's been carrying out inside Gaza. The Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, was talking about one particular incident, the sort of coordinated killing of 6 senior Hamas commanders. He said that there would be more unimaginable things in store for what he called the terrorist group.
Pretty belligerent words there. Do we have any indication of what else the Israelis might be planning, crucially, whether we could see a ground invasion?
Well, it's early to talk about that at the moment. There is some reporting in the Israeli media that tonight's Security Cabinet meeting was at least had the potential to discuss it, and certainly we have seen a lot of military hardware being moved around this area. I have to caveat that by saying not only is this unsourced publicly reports in the Israeli media, not even saying that such a decision has been made, merely that it might be talked about, but also when there are these escalatory rises in tension around the Gaza area, it is almost a matter of course that Israel will move large military vehicles, tanks and the like to the area. However, this time we are seeing, as well as tanks and other tracked vehicles, major artillery pieces being put in place as well. So it is looking as if they're trying to amass a serious option, at least, even if they don't carry through with it, because obviously a ground invasion carries greatly more risks for Israelis than what is currently going on in terms of the very extensive airstrikes. Don't forget that Israel has almost entire air supremacy over the entire area and can just use air power very destructively, as Hamas was just talking about, and as we have seen.
I suppose when violence escalates, the focus usually is between Hamas in Gaza and the Israeli military. But what we're also seeing now is tensions and riots in many of the Israeli towns that are mixed, Palestinian, Israeli and Jewish. So tell us a little bit more about how that is developing.
Yes, these are extraordinary, worrying, disquieting, depressing scenes going on across Israel, and really Israeli reporters are talking about them as unprecedented. What we saw was, if we take it chronologically, was the explosion of violence in Jerusalem on Monday, which in large part was the final step towards where we began this escalatory path in terms of the military action here in the south. But also there were violent demonstrations that night. There was a Palestinian man in the city of Lodz shot dead by a Jewish civilian. There was then earlier on Tuesday a very big funeral which led to clashes with the Israeli security forces inside Lod, and a call from the mayor of the town to the Prime Minister saying that he needs a civil state of emergency imposed and troops brought in because he had lost control of that town. Now, the first two nights of this violence, there was back and forth, but the preponderance of it was largely Arab against Jew. Tonight, it seems to be largely the other way around. A lot of Jewish attacks on Israeli Palestinians, on Palestinian Israelis in many cities, mixed cities and others across the country. In Bat Yam, in the center of Israel, there's an Arab ice cream shop that's been entirely trashed. In Tiberias, a tourist town on the shores of the Sea of Galilee, death to Arabs being chanted. There's been images of a Palestinian-Israeli man being set upon by a group of Jewish Israelis. So the Prime Minister, the President, they've all been talking about this. The Prime Minister has been talking about dealing with this with an iron fist of restoring law and order. So this is a parallel and extremely concerning development for the government, even as it continues to conduct this extensive and accelerating military operation in and around Gaza.